right, thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I have to start out with what may be a boring question, but I think it's right for this crowd, and it's just kind of how everybody signed on to the show. So, Oren, I wanted to start with you. As the showrunner, how did this kind of come about for you? Like, what was your starting point? How did you get interested in Spider-Noir?
Well, I have a long working relationship with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are producers, as well as Amy Pascal. I wrote 22 Jump Street for Phil and Chris, and I've worked with them a bunch since then. And Amy, my first movie, which I'll say the name of and no one will applaud, it started out as Kitchen Sink and then became something called Freaks of Nature, and no one has seen it.
Yeah.
But I've known Amy for a long time as well, and they came to me because they knew I'm a huge fan of film noir. So it was a good fit, and I was off to the races as soon as they offered it to me.
That's great. And then Lamorne, I mean, you're an Emmy winner now. This is correct, yeah. You're a serious actor. You lead prestige television.
That's right.
So I assume,
I don't do bullshit anymore.
So did you, make them chase you a little bit to get into this?
Yeah, I wish that's how it went. I think I won an Emmy maybe like a day or so, right after I signed the contract. I was like, no, can we open the case? Let's open the books again. No, but I had a meeting. I was prepared to audition. I heard about the project and I was prepared to audition, but I went in and met with Oren and Steve, and then they just begged me. You know what I mean? You should have saw it. It was a real mess in there. On their knees and everything, like pitching their case. Paid me a ton of money. No, they didn't. But it was like a meeting talking about character and talking about the story and where it goes. And I was going to say yes anyway, but it was just great to sit down and meet with them.
Lamorne was the only name that ever came up for the part.
It was awesome. I appreciate that.
Makes all the more sense that you had to beg. You only had the one name. So.
One of one, I guess. I don't know.
Lily, I wanted to know with your character. I mean, that scene that we saw in the first episode with the big song where there's just so much happening. It's so well shot. It's so well captured. Your performance is just electric, and it has to be. Otherwise the scene doesn't work. Is that something that you knew going in? Was that part of the the audition, the casting process? Was that something you knew you were going to have to do, or was that just kind of a exciting bonus later on?
Oh, it was definitely part of the audition. I had to sing at my audition, except the song I sang in the audition was completely in a different vocal range. And I came from musical theater, so I started out as a dancer, then I started singing, then acting actually came last. And when I auditioned for it, I sang the song, and I showed everyone I can carry a tune, but then when I was actually given the song, I thought, oh my God, this is not in my range. And I had a 2-week crash. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. It was a 2-week crash course with a vocal coach named Adriana Gonzalez, and she basically just got my voice back in shape because I hadn't sang in such a long time. And then afterwards, I continued to train with her in preparation for the other songs in the season.
Okay, well,
Grammy.
Karen,
You got to get a Grammy for it.
Karen, this is kind of a question for everybody, but I wanted to start with you. Because your role is so. Because the series really is so high stakes, it's a big show, these characters are kind of well known, how much did they tell you? What was the kind of casting process for you in terms of, these were the sides I read, these were the pages I got, this is what I got to know about the character? Was it secretive? Was it open? How did you feel when you were,
No, for me it was, mad secret. I got 2 scenes first, and her code name was Joan, not Janet. And
that's how secret it was.
Yeah, top secret. But the audition did come with who was attached, and so it was a quick little Google search, and it was it's for Spider-Noir, and I was gulp. But it kind of took the edge off a bit because I was it's a huge IP. It just kind of was I just want to do a good job. And it was certainly an introduction for me with Rachel Tenner, the casting director, and so I just wanted to do a good job. And then I heard back. Then I went to producers, and then 4 months later, they were like, hey, do you want to come in? I said, I'm about to leave to Mexico. I said, but yes, of course. And then they sent me, I think like 4 more scenes plus the 2. And then I spent the day just like kind of doing context clues. Like, who are these people? Who's this Irishman who was Silvermane? And I didn't know that. But it kind of distilled the character for me because it really just became about the text. And I've hyped Oren up a lot during this press tour, but it has to be said again. Like, she really jumped off the page, and her love for Ben and her care about the work that they do together and like her cause was so strong. And I thought, wow, like she just read to me such a modern woman, and I think it's because of the people around her. So I just had fun, and I like to believe that that's why they gave me the part, because there was like, I just had to plug into myself and what I knew, like that relationship, like who's that, who like where do I have that relationship? And I do, by the grace of God. And so, yeah, that's that story.
I had heard stories about like hearing and reading hundreds of actors or actresses for a part, and I didn't really think that was true, but it was true. And Karen was the only one who got it, and just got that you could give somebody a hard time and still love them without being mean to them, and it just, her natural sort of charm won the day.
Well, real quick as a follow-up, not to be, not to put Oren on the spot or anything, because obviously, casting that many, like seeing that many actors at once takes a long time. But for you, 4 months, like what do you do mentally to kind of sit with that? Do you put it out of your head like it's over, it's never going to happen, and you just move forward? Or are you always kind of holding it in the back? Like, what do you do to deal with it?
Oh,
you,
me?
yeah, I'm sorry. No,
I was fine with it. I was slept like a baby.
Oh, I really, I actually do want to talk about this because I think it's so tough on the actor. I have developed now a good sense of, I just release, and I really literally forget about it. I don't know why, I don't know how I developed it. I think it was just like so much heartbreak. And I mean, really, and like getting invested. But now, I mean, there are some parts, but this one I think I had a healthy sense because again, there's so much that goes into these types of projects, and I just, even though I don't actually know, I had a good sense of it. I thought, I don't know, like it's really like a needle in a haystack kind of shot. And so I really just had fun. And I did it for myself, and then I just forgot about it. But when they came back, I did panic a bit because my team was so excited. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna meet this moment though, because I don't remember what I did 4 months ago. like that's the thing about auditions, like it meets us in a certain moment, in a certain time. And that's why it is kind of like a needle in a haystack. It's absolutely like when we craft an audition in particular, because it's such a fast turnaround, it really is like where you're at in your life. It's a frame, it's a picture. And so I thought, gosh, I don't know if I'm, so I really just had to, and also I was meeting them the next day because we were starting in like 2 weeks. So it was like, hey, this is me, and I hope you like it. And thankfully they did.
All right, Abraham, for you, what was this process like? I mean, you've got a character that the fans are probably fairly well aware of to a certain extent. So did that add a level of secrecy for you? Did that, like, what was your kind of introduction to this?
Hello, everybody. So nice to be here. So cool. Similarly, it was secretive, but I was going through like a run of a bunch of self-tapes, and this came through, and the character's code name was Lemuel. I was like, oh, am I playing Lamorne Morris? What's happening?
We're the same size.
But I didn't know much about it, but I knew it was always like this big Marvel TV show. I didn't know what it was. It said Spider something, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it at the time. And I've like done a couple of small roles in like the other Marvel universe before, so I'm used to like getting these sides through having zero context, not knowing what's going on, and coming on and kind of being in the background. So I thought that's what was happening, But the scene was really cool. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And Well is going through it. So I just kind of like what Karen said, like, just enjoying the scene, having fun with it. I think I remember like put like a bit of a scar on my face just to have fun. And then sent it off and didn't think about it again. Yeah. And then heard back that they want me to do it again on Zoom with some producers. And I was like, okay, cool. What is it though? Still don't know what it is, but like it shoots in LA, and I think at that time it said like Nicolas Cage is in it. So I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. But again, I thought it was like a tiny role in something vast. Then I found out I got it, and I was like, oh shit, okay, but what have I got? What is the thing that I've got? I don't know what have I got? I'm happy though, but what have I got? And then my agent is like me, a huge comic book fan, and he was like theorizing, like what could it be? Yeah. Is it this? Is it that? Is it the Sinister Six? What is it? I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? It can't be any of that, surely. I've not met anybody. And then I went to meet Oren and Steve, and they told me, and I was like, I don't know if you remember this. I was like, wait, what did you just say? Did you just say Tombstone? And I was like, what the fuck? So that was my experience, and I think it was the perfect experience because I was just present the whole time and just enjoying the ride of just being fortunate enough to audition for things, having tapes coming through and getting to play, forgetting about it, and then getting to meet Oren and Steve in the room, and then finding out in that moment was like Christmas. It was really cool.
Of course I remember. I remember because your reaction made me, I was like, uh-oh, this might be kind of a big show. Fuck.
Yeah. It is a big show.
All right, Jack, so were you similarly surprised when you found out who you were playing, or did you have more insight into it as it went along?
I had a little insight. I got dummy sides, but I think I got. I don't know much about the comic books or the history, but the great thing about this show and the way Oren sort of curated it is it's like so far left from anything we've ever seen before in the Spider-Verse. You didn't need to be versed in the sort of Spider know-how and who people were before, because these characters were so beautifully curated, so put together, like uniquely, like we were able to come to it not with preconceived ideas. So it's sort of like Abe, who's a huge comic book guy, like knew all about this stuff, like was telling me about my character when I first got there. It was amazing. But like, I think with all of us, the cool thing was we read the scripts and we felt that this was something so, like when I say a long shot, it's like, how the fuck are you getting this made? This is so cool. Like, this is such an amazing actor's piece. My grandfather always used to say, 90% of making anything is casting in the nicest way, because, you have to think about so many different things. And the greatest part about coming to this project was the ensemble. It's like when you heard Nick Cage was doing it, and then we got to the table read, and I remember all of us at the table read, and this is, I've been part of some great ensembles, and I'm going to speak to this ensemble. This is like right at the top of the list. It was like the best group of actors you've ever sort of got together with. We sat around the table read, and we heard each one sort of bring it. Nick being the top of that, like he just came with energy like you've never heard before, and ideas, and we heard it, and we were like, oh shit, we have to bring our A game to this one. This is like a serious, actor's piece, character piece. So, just to speak every day going to work, it was the most fun I've ever had. Like, not only are you sort of living out your childhood dreams, but you're working alongside so many wonderful other actors and amazing creator. Oren was there on set every single day. I mean, it was, you always had like a sounding board, the most amazing people. Every time you got in a scene, it was exciting. You were allowed to experiment. You were allowed to play. You were allowed to really take your character in these different directions, which I don't know would be allowed in many other iterations of Spider-Man or the Spider-Verse. So, for that, I think as an actor, this was the greatest treat in the world.
Jack's part, Jack's part was also one that was very hard to cast, and I remember thinking like, I think these sides are bad, or maybe my writing is bad. And yeah, Lamorne didn't have the benefit of reading it first. But then Jack read, and I was like, oh, he just fucking gets it. Like, that's right. And then you said something the other day that was really interesting to me that you said it. Sometimes it's really good to read for a part because then when you get it, you know that they like exactly what you're doing. Yeah. And it's just true. I was like, just do exactly what you did because you got it. You know, Lily was the same. Like you know exactly what to do because I saw it already. So like we're in great shape.
That's the scary part about not reading, is because you don't know if you're gonna fire you day one. Like,
It was
I'm
touch
gonna
and
try this
go.
with a lisp. Do you think Robbie has a lisp and a limp?
Must be so hard never having to audition. It's tough.
Honestly,
Let's
it's
all
a tough
collectively
life.
cry for Lamorne.
The great
Yeah.
part was they made Nick read like 20 times. It's like, you know, Cage, they were like not sure.
Well, Nick doesn't have an Emmy.
Yeah, exactly. He does have an Emmy. It's true.
Yet.
He's got an Oscar, but this is TV. No.
Well, Jack, you brought up an interesting thing that I wanted to ask the cast about a little bit, and Oren, you can speak to this a little bit too. The idea of like coming to a role, like I mean, it happens obviously with comic books, but you know, if there's an adaptation of any kind, it's going to happen where like your character has a backstory that exists before the show existed. How much do you guys want to look into that versus how much do you want to just talk to your creator, stick to the script, read what's on the page, like have those conversations internally? Like how far back do you want to go? Like Abraham, maybe you could talk to this first since you did have like such a good knowledge of the comic.
I think what was really clear from the first meeting with Oren and Steve is that this was their own original take, which was so it's in the 1930s. So that's a whole other kettle of fish. So it's completely different. What I did do was think, okay, like, and I would send emails back and forth of like, okay, I'm an Easter egg guy. Like, what Easter eggs can we, throw in? But essentially, it was like following the real story. And I think like what Jack is saying, it's such a actor's treat to be able to like come to characters that are so realized in a world that is so realized. So it was really following the thread through. And then also, what was really exciting for me was the historical relevance of the time we were the setting. So it's set in 1930s. It's like after World War I, we're going through the Great Depression. You know, all of these things are happening, which are real, historical events that affect us to this day. So getting the blessing to play a character like Lonnie in that time period meant there was just so much I could just follow, and the story kind of came to me in that way. And of course, as a comic nerd, I'm thinking of what kind of little things could I throw in there. But really, like, everything was already on the page. Yeah.
But Abe's leaving out. Abe, at some point, you wrote letters home from the war, right?
Yeah.
Like he was putting a lot of thought into the backstory of his character, and it shows because you're so thoughtful and the emotions are all
Wrote me a letter,
they all come
man.
through.
Yeah.
He like the letters that we shared. It was unbelievable. It was so cool.
He didn't write me shit. He won't even write me text messages back. What are you doing today, Abe? Nothing.
My bad.
So you know how to write. That's a shocker.
He only writes letters. He doesn't do text. It's nothing digital.
It was back in the 30s, man.
Well,
What is this?
You brought up the 1930s aspect. So, and Oren, you talked about this a little bit with how you came to the project. What did you use for inspiration in like noir? As soon as it's in the title, there's a bunch of people whose little sensors are going to go off and be like, "I love this genre. I'm looking for certain things." What did you want to lean into? What did you look for inspiration? How did you find the tone that you ended up finding?
I mean, the tone is specific, and it's to a voice. You just want to have something that's very consistent throughout, and it's hard when you're doing action and drama and melodrama and romance and comedy. But that's just maintaining that. But the references are all the old noirs that I loved so much. I stole early and often from them, just moments and relationships. So yeah, I leaned heavily into all those old movies.
Did you like share anything with the cast, or did you guys look toward anything to be like, okay, this kind of will help me with the pacing or the dialogue or like settling into the character? Did you have any kind of inspirations like that, or was it all?
He told me, for me, some of the show was based around his love for Devil in a Blue Dress. And so I had obviously already seen the film, but I went back and watched it a few more times, kind of just so I could see what other masters did with it, with the genre. Denzel and Don Cheadle. I was like, I just want to see what they did. I just want to kind of see the pacing, the tone. How modern are they in an old world? Are they bringing a lot of themselves to the character, or are they so immersed in the times that they kind of disappear? And they did a combination of both, which I thought, and I think that was the cool thing about this show, was that it kind of was dealer's choice of what you wanted to do with the character. And so watching how they're completely different. Watching Denzel lean more into his vocal quality of the time period, and Don Cheadle kind of leaning more into what his character did as a hustler in it. Still a little bit more modern. So paying attention to both, knowing as long as the story plays, and as long as you're playing it honestly and truthfully, it's Devil in a Blue Dress. It's one of the best films. So I kind of just leaned into that, listening to Denzel's vocal quality in it. Kind of helped me kind of change my cadence a little bit in this to have more of more butter behind the vocal quality. Yeah.
Anybody else, just before we move on, anybody else have any specific references or characters that you went back to kind of help you get into yours?
Oren, you always say that great thing about your inspiration where it was Humphrey Bogart. You've got to say it, Humphrey Bogart. But what if
The show? Sort of one thing we talked about a lot was what if you made a Humphrey Bogart movie where Bogart just happened to be Spider-Man? So that was sort of a main one. But with most of the actors on stage, we had references throughout that either from, Femme Fatale's past for Lily, or like I talked about Russell Crowe from LA Confidential for Jack's character. There's been 100 years of these movies, so there's always something to look at.
Yeah, it's always just interesting to me because, you want to do your own thing and you want to, kind of stand out, but you're also playing in a genre, like you said, that has such a rich history. So it's just like, where do you look? How do you find it?
It's like honor it and then make it your own.
Yeah.
But also the cool thing about it was that we got to play in workshop. I know Abe and I had to shoot some stuff pretty early on, months before the rest of the production got started. And so I was workshopping a lot, and I remember a moment I had with another actor, and we were doing the scene, and we were both kind of like asking ourselves, the insecure questions that actors ask. It's like, how does it sound to you? Do I look stupid? And I remember I would pop my head in Video Village, just because we're still figuring it out, and I'll pop my head into Video Village and go, huh? Yeah. And then I remember one moment where I was like, I think I got it. And then Harry Bradbeer, fantastic director, he comes in and he just looks at me and he goes, it's not a parody. Okay. And then he just walks out, and I was like, got it.
That was a really good Harry, by the way. That was just like him.
You know how he would, but he would just kind of pop out of the corners like a little troll. I mean, he doesn't look like a troll. You know what I mean. But troll-like behavior where just 1 minute he's there, 1 minute he's not. And then he would just be like, note, and then he would just disappear.
Troll-like behavior. I don't know if I was going to get that out of you today.
Great director.
Please
one of the
Harry.
best in the world. But, he could be here right now.
All right, I wanted to ask a little bit about kind of you all have great scenes early on with Nicolas Cage, and obviously he's such an important part of the show. Again, Lily, I don't mean to keep going back to that big scene in the first episode with your song and then the conversation with Ben, but it's such a good dynamic. You have this star power, but you also have to be kind of relatable enough to him to connect with him in that moment. How did you want to approach that? what do you want to do to bring that character out where it's she is bigger than life, but at the same time, she can make a connection with, this detective who's just kind of stumbling through?
Gosh, I don't know. I think sometimes I feel like, when I read my audition sites, I just thought, okay, this is me, and I get it. I know this, and I should play her. Oh, wait, but I want to add, if I may go on a tangent, her secret code name was Faye, which is my role in Babylon, and I thought that was so interesting. I don't know if you intended it to be that. See? Fate.
Yeah. Great scene, by the way. Just fantastic. Babylon, that was amazing. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. But it was the scene right after her performance was one of the audition sides, and when I read for everyone on Zoom, I think we did it a bunch of times. Everyone had different notes, and it was just trying to balance everyone's thoughts and trying to apply everyone's direction. And then how I pictured it in my head is not how it ended up, because as soon as we were at the table reading, the speed in which Nick worked blew me away. He was so intense. And the minute we started the scene, he was, the rhythm was so quick that I just thought to myself, oh my God, I have to work harder. I thought I worked hard, but Nick made me feel like I was just simply not working hard enough. And I don't know how I got there. It just kind of was instinctual, and I think Nick is a big part of how my character came about.
Karen, I had a similar question with you. Like, again, your two characters, Ben and Janet, have this kind of intimacy right off the bat. Like, we have to understand their dynamic very quickly. And a lot of it just comes through the dialogue and the pattern and, like, kind of how they interact with each other. How did you approach that? Like, did you get a lot of time to rehearse? Did you get thrown in? Like, how did you want to kind of make sure that people could feel that there was a bond there, even though there's no, like, heavy exposition where it's like, we're best friends or we have this long of a relationship? So
yeah, I mean, that was definitely the challenge of the day. Like, I had about a week before I started. And so I read all the scripts. I met with Oren and Harry and Steve. And it was a task because Oren and Rachel and everybody throughout the audition process, which was very quick, was like, everybody loves Janet. And I thought, what the fuck? Like, because that's an essence thing. It's not really you just love somebody or you don't. Like, and so I knew that I had to find an engine as to, like, what is it about this woman that naturally makes people love her? And if I can find that engine, hopefully I can find it within me and Ben. But and then I did all that prep work. I found the engine, and basically, like, to distill it, it was Janet pays attention to the other, and she makes you feel like she understands you. And when you do that, people will give you the world. And so, I thought that was a power of hers. And I think she does that for Ben, right? Like, she knows him inside and out. And who wouldn't love that? Now, in actual practice, when we got there, Nick he really looks at you. He is so present, and it's very disarming. And I was sweating. I mean, there was like one take in the first, what?
I was going to tell the story about, can I?
The national?
So
Okay.
You say
like, I know there was a take the first day, Harry was like, can you guys look at each other? And I looked at him, and we had to hold. Noir style, right? And we're holding, and then he was really looking at me. He's a very tall man, okay? He's really looking at me, and I'm like, oh my God. And then they cut, and I go, and I was so nervous, and I just go, okay, Smolder. And he just like laughed, but I was like, oh my God, gotta stop saying things to him. But I'll just say that it was a dance. Like, what it felt like was like being in physical space with him. He's a very kinetic actor. And he knows like the emotional map of his character, and he moves us so. And so I really think that somewhere along the line, I was like, I have to actually be viewpointing his body, because if he's gonna hand me a note or something, I have to be there. If he needs coffee, I have to be there. And so just from that, but it was definitely touch and go. I mean, Oren was instrumental in just letting me get out of my own way, because it was, it was a challenge for sure.
He also knows he's Nick Cage.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So there are moments where, like, it took me a couple of days and we did a good job of, like, setting a couple of meetings before we shot where I could, like, drop the nervousness.
Yeah.
Because we have to be friends. So we have to know each other. You can't have shaky hands.
Yeah.
And I remember a moment where we're sitting on stage, and he's so magnetic that I'm trying to pick up everything that he's putting down. So I'm watching how he preps. I'm watching how he moves in between takes. Like, does he go in his holding area? Does he go to his trailer? Like, is he on his phone? Like, how do you become that good of an actor? Mm-hmm. And I remember a moment where he's pacing back and forth, going over his lines in his head. And I look over, I look over at Karen, and she's just looking at him like this. And he knows he's Nick Cage, so he's very disarming. So at one point he stops and he turns around and he goes, "I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence."
And I had been sitting, and he normally would go to his chairs, and instead he stayed on set. So I was like, no sudden movements, Guttin. Just be quiet. And then he stopped and turned around and said it just like that. And I screamed. I was like, you can't do that, I'm a fangirl. What the fuck? I'm trying not to be like a freak, you know? And he smiled. And then also, then he goes, wait a minute. I can't do Lamorne's. Okay, just don't accept. Okay, but he goes, wait a minute. Ben Riley, what was his name in National Treasure? It was Ben something.
It was Ben, yeah.
Ben something. See, I butchered the story. But he was like, Ben Riley, Ben whatever from National. Wait, what? Wait, what?
Ben Gates.
Ben Gates, yeah. He was like, Ben Riley, Ben Gates, Ben Riley, Ben Gates. And they were like, okay, rolling. He was like, for later. And then that was it. And then I was like, I don't know.
He's making a conspiracy out of his own characters.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
He's like, wait, Destiny? And I'm like, what? And rolling, okay. You know.
I noticed with Nick that like we would be shooting episode 7 and he'd be saying lines from the pilot over and over again in between takes. And then finally I was like, I gotta, like, what's up? Like, what are you doing? And he said, that's my tuning fork. He said, that's how I find my character before every take, which was really interesting to me.
Thanks for telling me his secret now. I'm all over the place in this series. Hope you like it.
I could sit here, I'm sure we could all sit here and listen to these stories for days. Thank you so much for sharing them. We got to get them out of here, though, so please, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank them for coming, but also please stay in your seats for just a few minutes while we get them out of the building. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.